Chicken. Today's video is a vlog of my adventures with the Gemma Polo. This is a pattern by Cookie the Knitter and I have the written pattern here. I will be reading her explanation of the pattern. Gemma Polo is a drop shoulder top down with an adorable collar and button bands worked in double knitting. First, the back yoke is worked flat with increases to make a shoulder slope. Then stitches are picked up from the back yoke for the shoulders. After this, button bands and the buttonholes are worked simultaneously. When the button bands have been made, the two shoulders and back are joined. That was a very Swedish pronunciation. Joined in the round. The body is finished with a folded hem. The sleeves are worked in a semi-balloon silhouette. And this pattern is intended to have a positive ease of 15 to 20 centimeters. There are, let me see how many sizes. There are 5 sizes, so extra small to extra large, for a bust circumference of 101 centimeters to 131 centimeters, or 39.75 inch to 51.5 inch circumference. I will be using the recommended yarn, which is the Lanagatto Supersoft. It is 50 grams for 125 meters, and I will be using 2 colors, the grey one and the off-white one, or the natural one. The grey one, the name is grey, but it's green. I knit my gauge swatch in it. This is not grey, this is green. I made 2 gauge swatches, one with the recommended needle size, a 5mm needle that was too tight, and then I went up to a 5.5 and I hit gauge. And I will be taking this project with me on some trips this summer. So I started this project, I have actually already started. I started the project when we were in Copenhagen. I did some of the back yoke because I only had 2 balls of yarn, and I ran out quite quickly, and that was in mid-June. And then I went to Austria to the roller derby World Cup, and you'll be seeing some of the clips from the games there. So enjoy the Swedish summer. These are some clips from the very end of June to the end of July. Starting off strong, we had a very early flight to get to Austria in the morning. We spent some time on the highway and then finally came to the venue. I spent some time during and between the games knitting, and here I'm about at the point where I start knitting the button bands. Next game I hit the button band benchmark and I started picking up stitches and doing the double knit button band just off of reading the instructions. The games themselves were very interesting. It was inspiring watching such high-level athletes that I admire, seeing some of my own coaches in Team Sweden and some of the other international teams. But most importantly, I admired and loved the political stance that the players, the athletes, the organisers took. Sports is political, especially a queer inclusive sport such as roller derby, and trans athletes belong in sports. Trans rights are human rights, and we can't be silent when there is a genocide going on. I'm very happy to have had that experience, and I took many of the experiences home to my own kitchen and my own sofa to ponder and reflect on afterwards. This project was full of new things for me to learn. As I said, I had a double knitted button band that I had never done before. I was also trying out jogless stripes for the first time. I have had a lot of time on trains this summer, and here I am going down to visit my parents in the south of Sweden to hang out and knit with my mum. this is their living room where I've spent many an hour knitting in my life. Okay, so I am on a try-on roll when it comes to my current whips. Okay, this is how far I've come. And now the pattern says, I want to look at this cute button band. Okay, the pattern says that I'm now supposed to knit, I'm just supposed to finish one of these thicker stripes here and then do a cuff. And that might actually work. I wonder if it's going to be too short. But this length is so cute. This color is so cute. And it's such a good material. It's not too warm, it's not scratchy at all, and it's very fluffy. It's thick with a few extra C's. This thick yarn had to be sewn down very carefully. I had to weave in the ends a few extra times just to make sure they wouldn't slip away between the stitches. That made the woven in spots quite tight, and some of them are visible through the fabric on the front. However, since the color shifts underneath the arm, both for the sleeves and for the body, it's not very noticeable. The next trip for the summer was to an island in the archipelago of Stockholm. This is the road going there to the harbour where we got on a boat, not a ferry, a boat. There are no commercial ways of getting to the island. You have to have your own boat or get to borrow one. And this is the place. We had time together, my partner's family, my partner and I. The weather was beautiful. The mosquitoes were biting. And this is the view from our tent. We let the others sleep in the houses, but there weren't enough beds for all of us, so we sacrificed ourselves and took the tent instead, and it turned out such a good idea because the weather was so hot that the temperature in the tent was the most pleasant. In Sweden, we have a very strong legislation around protecting our beaches and waterfronts, strandskyddet, which means that if you have a property that is close to the water or on the water, you have to apply to get anything done with it, pipes, electricity, and so on. This property does not have running water, so we went out into the bay, got some salt water, heated it up, and did the dishes in a freestanding sink. The mosquitoes, as I said, were very alert. They were very happy to have some humans join them. They were dancing for us, they were singing to us, and they were biting. Time flew and stood still at the same time. This was the view at 11:30, sitting on the dock to brush our teeth. And the sun setting over a calm island with the occasional boat driving past. It was a beautiful weekend, and it was soon time to return to reality. by train. I was headed down to the south of Sweden again to visit my parents and also to see some childhood friends who now live abroad in Asia and in the US, who came back to visit their families and friends. I had some lovely time on the train, knitting, looking out the window at the beautiful landscape. And I also packed my knitting when I was going to see my brother and his family in another city in the south of Sweden. Swedish trains aren't necessarily on time, but they are quite clean and comfortable. Around this point, I had been knitting the body and the sleeves with magic loop, and I can say I'm very, very sick of it. I much prefer my DPNs for any work. This was just painfully fiddly, and I don't like it. I moved on to my double knitted collar. This was a delicious experience. It was quite squishy to knit this thick double knit. I knit it on a smaller needle size than the rest of the body and the sleeves, so I would get a more compact fabric. I had some time to kill before meeting a friend in the city, and I spent it, to no one's surprise, by knitting. Okay, it's like 1 in the morning, and I've been working on my double knitted collar for hours. My mum and I just finished watching the football game between Spain and Germany, which was, as a half German myself, was a bit of a disappointment, but I did manage to get some knitting done, and let's see where we are at. Okay, this is cute. Okay, so the double knitted collar is still in the works. It needs several more centimeters, and this will close like this up to here if I wanted to. So yes, several more centimeters. But this is where we are at. So the sleeves are a bit short so far, but this is before blocking. So here's hoping. The yarn is very slippery, so the yarn ends that I wove in are already starting to come out, which is a bit concerning, and it's making me a bit hesitant about the success of this project. But the look, the fit, the feel, great, love it. I hope to finish this by tomorrow, because these needles I borrowed from my mum because I didn't bring the right size needles on my trip. So this is where we're at. I did not manage to finish on time before I went home, so the needles came with me and I will be returning them to my mum as soon as I can. I'm not a coffee drinker, never have been, never will, because coffee just is not tasty, but I do like tea. So what to do in the middle of a hot summer? Make iced tea by boiling water and heating up your entire kitchen with it. Very smart, but very tasty. I went on to do some tubular bind off for my double knitted collar, I watched some tutorials, but I did not trust myself to remember which way to turn which stitch, so I made myself a bit of a cheat sheet. Gosh, so many difficult words to say. Sheet. And kept it by my side when I was knitting together these 280 something stitches. I then did a quick sew down of the bottom hem. I did not match up stitch to stitch, but took one in every 3 stitches because I wanted the fabric to keep some of its elasticity between the sewn stitches. Okay, here we are. I finished her. I woven all the ends. There's so many ends in this. I'm going to count how many ends I actually did have to weave in. I have them saved in a pile up here. And now I'm going to go block it, but before I want to try it on. It's an incredibly hot day today, so I'm doing it for the art, but it's incredibly warm. Okay, so I haven't added buttons yet, and that's because I wanted to block it before I add any buttons, because if I add them now, the buttonholes need to add up with the button placement, and if they don't, it will be puckery and all weird. So that's the last step I will do. I did fold it over and knit it down, and this hem is at the moment sort of cutting up so that I will be pinning down, and the sleeves are a bit short still, even though I extended this last green stripe with 4 rows. There was originally supposed to be 16 and now it's 20. Before doing the cuff, I think that's going to work out well in the blocking process, but I'm very happy with how it's looking. The collar isn't laying flat quite yet. I wonder if I made the collar a bit too short, if I should have extended it another centimeter, but we will see. I am going to go block it and we will see where we are after that. This is incredibly warm, I have to get out of it. Most of the sweater didn't need any blocking, my tension was quite even, but I did want to pin down the button band and the roll over hem, or the hem that was threatening to roll over. I then did some amazing camera work, blocking every angle when I was sewing on the buttons. So this last button I changed the angle for and I sewed it down. I sewed it down with a thread of the white yarn, and I did a equal sign instead of a cross on the button. I didn't like how the cross looked. It was too bulky, I thought. Hair newly dyed, sweater dry. Okay, so remember that I said that I didn't know if the arms would be long enough? This is the first time I'm trying it. I think we can safely say that the arms are long enough. They have grown very satisfactorily. I'm very satisfied with how long they are. Are they almost too long? And the buttons button up, and I mean, the pattern had instructions on how to space the buttons, how many rows apart, but I was very confused by how many rows we were talking, because it was outside, inside, and front and back together as 2 rows, so they are a bit unevenly spaced, but I'm happy with it. The button band is bulging a bit, but the collar is very nice. You can see where I started the tubular bind off and where I finished. This is so much neater, but this is a homemade, handmade garment, and it can show. It's fine. I like the length. It's going to work for more temperatures than this. It does not work for this temperature. It's too hot, but it's very cute. So here we are. I finished. I had to take it off. It's just too hot to function, but I'm finished. I like the color selection. I don't know what I think about the yarn selection, because as I said in a previous clip, the yarn is so slippery, and it's non-felting, so it's treated to be non-felting, which I suppose is it's superwash treated, so it's very slippery, and some of the ends had already started creeping out on one of the sleeves. I haven't noticed any other ends creeping out, and I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just pull the ends out completely and tie a knot and leave the strands hanging on the inside. The gauge, or the yarn, loosened up quite a lot after blocking, which I had seen in my gauge swatch as well, but the gauge swatch is, I don't know, 15 by 15 centimeters or something, so it's not really transferable to how the finished garment will look. It was my first time doing a double knitted button band, and I am pleased with having learnt it. I'm not 100% pleased with the execution of it, but I mean, it's the first time I ever made one. What can I expect of myself? The buttons I found in my button drawer that I inherited the just kilograms of buttons from my great aunt. She is still alive, but she used to be an avid sewist, and now she retired from that a few years ago when her dexterity wasn't keeping up with her ideas anymore. So I was given all of these buttons, and I found these that I think fit quite well. The spacing, not 100%, but this button will always be open anyway, so that won't matter too much. And they are wooden buttons, and I like that I get to incorporate something from my great aunt in this sweater. So overall, very happy with the sweater, the polo. I've learned a lot from it. I ended up using basically all of the yarn that I had ordered. So the recommendation of yarn quantity is very accurate. I added, as I said, a few stripes on the sleeves, or a few rows, 4 rows or something, on the sleeves to make them a bit longer because I was worried that they would be too short. Now, having blocked it, I think it's just right, or even a bit too long, but that's fine. And most of the construction I'm very happy with. The cuffs are a bit tight because I didn't use a stretchy cast off, but that was half because I couldn't be bothered and half because I wanted to keep some of the structural integrity, because the fabric otherwise is quite loose and I think it could be prone to losing its shape, so I wanted some structure in the cast off. One other thing that I'm not 100% loving is this part right here. So you can see that the button band sort of pulls it up in the middle. So I think you could see in the clip while I was showing it on that the stripe, it had a bit of a peak where it was tugging up, and I will see how that works out. I think that might be something I can't get away from when it comes to this pattern. That's just how the stripe is constructed, and how the button band then pulls everything together. Maybe I could have used a slightly bigger needle for the button band so it wouldn't have scrunched it together quite as much, but I don't know, and I will never find out because this is how I knit it and I will not be ripping anything out. If I wanted to change the button band, I would have to rip out the entire sweater because the button band is finished once you've knit to the sternum level, basically. Before you join in the round, that's when you knit the button bands, and then you finish the entire body, you do the sleeves, and then lastly you knit the collar. So I should have changed that at the very beginning, if at all. So that is my only gripe with the construction, I suppose, or the execution, that I can see myself being a bit annoyed by. But I didn't see it once when I was wearing it. I just saw it now looking back at the video, and maybe it won't be noticeable once I wear it. Apparently it wasn't, so this is probably fine. The pattern itself is very, very clearly written. I managed to knit, as you saw, I managed to knit the button bands, having never done double knitting or knitting a button band with holes for the buttonholes ever, just off of reading the instructions, and I did it during a sports event, so it was a very clearly worded, instructive pattern, I thought. She also adds some links, so she has QR codes leading to videos that show some of the more difficult parts of the pattern, but I found that the videos are either a bit too short. There's one passage when you pick up for the collar, it just says to slip the first stitches, and then continue with the working yarn, and then the next row it doesn't make sense. So I tried to watch that video, but it didn't show the very first part of that row, but just the next few steps. And then some other links or some other QR codes don't lead to the right link, so it says this is video 6 and it should be about, I don't know, finishing, and then the link is actually to buttonholes, or it's actually to double knitting, so that was a bit confusing. But otherwise the pattern as it's written, very clear. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed her way of writing, so I think I'll be looking at some more patterns from her, or rather this experience has made me more likely to choose one of her patterns in the future if I'm choosing between different designers, because this pattern type I know that I enjoy. following. I am a bit worried about the inclusivity, the size inclusivity of the pattern, because I knit the second size, I think, in this pattern, and I did meet gauge with half a size larger needles, so this should be as God intended it, as Cookie the Knitter intended it to fit. It is with, it's intended to be worn with the positive ease of several centimeters, I think over 10 centimeters, over 20 centimeters. So I chose a size that was one smaller than I would usually have gone for, and this is still quite large for me, so I wonder how small the pattern actually goes. And generally with many pattern designers, it is a question of how big is the size range, not just how well does it cater to the smallest sizes, but how well is it scaled up into larger sizes to fit larger bodies and to fit proportions of bodies that don't look like mine. So for my body, this pattern was a good choice, but I don't know how it works for other body types and other proportions. I did count how many ends I had to weave in, and the entire sweater plus 4 buttons ended up being 122 ends to weave in. I am very happy with myself that I did that as I went. So once I had finished the body and the first sleeve, I made myself weave in all those ends because I knew this was going to be a mammoth undertaking. And then once I finished the second sleeve, I went directly on to casting on for the collar and double knitting that, because that was something I couldn't stop myself from doing. That was a good call on my part, I think, because sewing in the buttons, that was not a very difficult thing to do. But if I had had to do that as well as weave in 122 ends, I don't think we would have ever finished. I don't think we would have gotten to this point. So now this polo is finished. Once the weather cools down a bit, I can start wearing it. I think I'll take it to Norway next week, just to have something light-ish. It is still a warm sweater comparatively, but it's not very thick, and it's a relatively heavy finished garment, but it does squish down to quite a small thing, so it won't take up much space in my luggage anyway. So that is the second finished object for my summer knitting plans. I'm very proud of myself having followed this plan so well. So to summarise, I finished the camisole number 4 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I did that first in the summer, but I ordered the yarn for them at the same time. And then I cast on this, the Gemma Polo. I finished my Oh My Figure dress, which was one of my goals for the summer as well. And the only thing that remains when it comes to my summer knitting plans are the colourwork socks with the lemon pattern, and that's something I've just completely left on the back burner because I didn't feel like doing it, so I haven't. Now that I'm looking forward to the fall, I mean, we are still at the end of July, so we won't have fall weather for at least a month and a half. But if I look into the future, I can see, oh, we are headed to fall, so I might want to do some sock knitting in the semi-near future. But I did an impromptu cast on, fairly impromptu, of the Feels Right tee by Lily Kate France, which will be coming in maybe next week or the week after that as a finished video, because I'm nearly done with the first sleeve and it's just a t-shirt length sleeves, so it's not a big thing. And I did find some other Isaiah yarn that is a cotton, viscose and linen mix instead of just a cotton linen mix as I had for the Feels Right tee. So that is something that I'm a bit interested in trying as well, knitting something with that. I have a few patterns in mind that I could choose, but I made a plan for the summer. I have kept to it. I have added to it, but mostly I have finished the big projects at least, which I'm happy about. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please do like it. If you want to, please do subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my future uploads. As I said, there will be a vlog of my Feels Right tee by Lily Kate France coming up in the next few weeks, and I have some other fun videos planned as well. Leave a comment if you found anything worth commenting on today's video. Have you knitted the Gemma Polo? Is it something you are interested in knitting? Have you knitted anything with the Lanagatto before? And what is your feelings about weaving in as you go or weaving in one fell swoop? Thank you for watching. Take care. Go drink some water. I'll see you next time. Bye. And also, is it strange to keep my phone in the refrigerator because it was so hot that I burnt my fingers on my phone and I didn't want it to die or start burning? So now you'll be in the freezer, in the refrigerator for a bit to cool down. It's too hot.